Radio City Music Hall, just a couple of blocks uptown. World headquarters. Went into her job as an assistant principal in an Ohio medical school. 9/11 was inside. Wait, break.
Quiet until they come back.
Oh, get a life. Get a life. 9/11 was an inside job. I think these demonstrators are all into restroom gay sex.
Something my lawyer explained to me that he learned in law school. When the law's on your side, you talk about the law. When the facts are on your side, you talk about the facts. When neither the law nor the facts are on your side, you talk about something else, anything else.
Sure.
You talk about the facts.
It would be
neither the
pretty cool
law
if you
nor
guys
the
would
facts are on
interview
your
Dr.
side,
Judy
you talk
Wood sometime about her theory on 9/11.
All right, sir, I thank you for the call. Let's go to Carolyn in Florida. It's unbelievable, man. We're talking about real issues here, and people want to talk about the most Johnny nonsense stuff you can possibly imagine. I'm not even going to get into that what that caller wanted to talk about.
A 110-story building above us, and I'm looking up at the sun.
And a split second later, I opened up my eyes, and I was just sitting there, totally numb, looking up at blue sky. Then it got dark from the smoke and everything, and I started to cough. I started to feel pain in my leg, and I said, I couldn't even believe at that point that I was alive, and I survived that, and there was nothing above me.
Jason, the reason you're getting so many crazy calls is what I've tried to explain to you. We don't screen phone calls unless it's on a particular subject, and we say we want callers on that subject, so people take advantage of that. We now reach so many millions of people that the haters are the ones that are always going to call in first. And what that does is then distort what we're covering. You know, they're going to call in about chupacabras. They're going to call in about space beams.
They try to equate the evidence as though it's an opinion. And if it's an opinion, then if they discredit the opinion giver or whatever, then that's the way they cover up the evidence. That's why, you know, the book, the way I wrote it, it empowers the reader. It's totally independent of me. The reader reads the book. They understand the evidence firsthand. They take ownership of that information. And so what if I get smeared? You know, that doesn't change the evidence. You know, they could kill me off. Fine. The evidence is still there. And that's what needs to get dealt with. And if somebody is distracting away from the evidence, you know, red flag.
Dr. Judy, have you ever written in the book space beams? Ever?
No, nor have I ever used that term.
Thermite burns so incredibly hot that it can melt straight through the engine block of a car.
If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong.
If you think about a cloud of superheated gas expanding and rolling outwards from the collapsing buildings, the gas inside the middle of the pyroclastic flow will be the hottest, but will cool down considerably on the surface of the cloud, where it is expanding and coming into contact with surrounding, cooler air. As the cloud rolls outward over cars like this one, the superheated gas at the center will be hot enough to melt a paint.
The cars, which I talked about, those look very much like thermite for the reasons I explained.
I would suggest that many of these characteristics are consistent with pyroclastic flow damage seen in volcanic eruptions.
If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong.
In 2005, a number of reports were issued by NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which were the result of a study mandated by Congress to, quote, determine why and how WTC-1 and WTC-2 collapsed, unquote. In April 2007, Dr. Wood, with the help of Connecticut Attorney Jerry Leapart, lodged a qui tam complaint against some of the contractors employed by NIST. This complaint followed an earlier request for correction, an RFC, with regard to the same NIST WTC report, establishing her as the first to address the fact that this report did not even contain an analysis of the collapse of the WTC. Dr. Wood's original RFC defined how NC Star 1 is, quote, fraudulent and deceptive because it does not address the profound level of destruction of the WTC towers that seem to violate the law of physics. NIST denied Dr. Wood's RFC, admitting they did not analyze the collapse. That is, the spokesperson for NIST admitted that they did not fulfill the mandate by Congress. The title of the report is NIST NC Star 1 Final Report on the Collapse of the World Trade Center Towers. Yet they did not analyze the so-called collapse, or even determine if it actually did collapse. Dr. Wood's subsequent appeal to NIST was also denied, though the qui tam case against some of the contractors that NIST employed went forward. In the original RFC, Dr. Wood stated that, quote, NIST cannot make a statement that the World Trade Center towers came down in free fall, on one hand, and then say that doing so is a form of collapse. Wood also stated that the, quote, use of the descriptive word collapse is incorrect, and points out that according to NIST's own data, their explanation of how the towers were dustified does not satisfy the laws of physics. Dr. Wood uses the word dustified because she has identified a new phenomenon where the building was turned to dust. It was not vaporized by high heat, nor was it smashed by kinetic energy. She concludes from the study that a new type of directed energy weapon was used to destroy most of the WTC buildings. This weapon appears to utilize field effects in its operations, and so is fundamentally different to known types of directed energy weapons such as lasers and masers. Contrary to what Dr. Wood's critics say, her qui tam submissions do not discuss the use of ray beams from space, but they focus on a number of pieces of evidence which indicate the presence of field effects in and around the WTC complex on 9/11. Dr. Wood also points out that the Applied Research Associates, or ARA, one of the defendants in the qui tam action, were one of the contractors for the NC Star reports, and that they are a significant developer and manufacturer of directed energy weapons and or components of same. This, therefore, would be one example of where there was a conflict of interest in producing a truthful report. Dr. Wood's qui tam documents include a study of additional evidence to illustrate NIST's contractors' exhibition of, quote, willful blindness when they produced their part of the NC Star reports. For example, the contractors' own explanations did not address the fact that much of the steel in the towers turned to dust before it reached the ground. Dr. Wood's submissions include a study of some of the effects seen in the aftermath of the WTC destruction, such as anomalous dust effects, anomalous rusting, and anomalous effects seen on some of the surviving WTC steel girders, pictures of which were included in the original NIST documents. The girders are bent and deformed in unusual ways, and because the towers turned to dust, the effects on the girders cannot be explained as being caused by gravity-driven collapse. In Dr. Wood's submission, certain effects on metals and on objects near the WTC are also considered, such as inverted or flipped cars, and cars which are toasted-looking but show damage inconsistent with a hot fire. Dr. Wood's later research has also documented the presence of Hurricane Enen, which was closest to NYC at about 8 a.m. on 9/11.
What turns people off on looking at my work is all these rumors of ray beams from space or space beams.
Dr. Wood says maybe there's a beam of laser or microwave from space or something.
Which I don't ever talk about.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people at the energy conference had probably heard that and were turned off my work.
Oh,
But they
right. Even at
listened,
the conference, even with those.
and they
amongst
listened to
those-
my presentation, then they turned them around 180 degrees.
Oh, great.
They realized that, wait a minute, and they saw the connection with the energy conference, and it was
absolutely.
wonderful. It was a
Oh,
wonderful
great.
conference, wonderful opportunity to turn this around, reverse it. Now let's look at some of the samples that were collected from the WTC. You have a variety of all sorts of strange things in the air. And if you look at the melting or the boiling temperatures of these things, there's no rhyme nor reason to the amount of the quantity. It isn't that the things that boil at a lower temperature are more prevalent. What is even more bizarre is that organic material was also found with this, which shows it was not from a high temperature process. Now we get to the most exciting slide. What was measured at the World Trade Center was definitely above background levels, 50 times background levels. There was tritium there. Now, why? But what's also interesting is in 2009, Pons and Fleischmann were vindicated by this 60 Minutes show where, yes, it is indeed a real phenomenon.
Yeah.
And Fleischmann was asked if he regretted anything. And he said, yes, I regret allowing my colleagues or my competitor to call this cold fusion. It's a low energy nuclear reaction.
Right.
It was called cold fusion in the same way that my work is called space beams.
Oh, okay, I see.
And it was by the same person.
So in other words, when you give something a certain name, that's part of the perception management process.
Yes, indeed.
I would say that people like Stephen E. Jones, if you go and look at the evidence of what he's tried to do with this data and this evidence, if you look at what he's actually done, he is essentially set back cold fusion phenomena research or low energy nuclear reactions research by 20 years.
Yes.
And then if you listen to Pons and Fleischmann, by the end of the 1990s, they had sustained reactions going on in their experimental assessment. They were funded by Toyota. I think they got their funding pulled.
Yeah.
So I blame people like Stephen E. Jones for what happened at Fukushima, because there is no need for us to be using that technology. And many other people have said this.
I agree.
I think
absolutely.
if you couple together what Dr. Wood has unfolded in the study of the World Trade Center destruction, you can see the energy phenomenon is real. You can clearly see that it's linked to cold fusion, and you can see the players that are involved. And so somebody has got that knowledge. Somebody has engineered that physics, because what happened happened.
Yes.
That's not a theory. What happened happened.
For a number of years, I was the principal investigator for the Department of Energy on this study of muon catalyzed fusion.
Amazing. So you've headed up investigations for the government before.
Yeah.
And now
Department of Energy funded our research. That's right.
So again, Jones is creating an illusion about what's been said about the cold fusion process, and he actually contradicts himself, because he said he named the process cold fusion, but then he said that Fleischmann couldn't call it fusion, but it was actually Jones that helped to put this terminology in place, and that was also part of the information management around the whole operation, which still persists to this day, as we'll hear. And in fact, what happened to Pons and Fleischmann is, because they came up with this concept that you could get energy from nowhere, they were attacked, they were vilified, they were called all kinds of things, and you can read about that in Dr. Eugene Mallard's book, Fire from Ice.
And I haven't, it looks to me like the thermite explanation fits the data quite well, and so that's where I stand on that.
The buildings turned to dust. They didn't burn up. They didn't slam to the ground. They turned to dust in midair. We know that because of lots of key features: lack of significant seismic signal, lack of a seismic signal that traveled through the earth. There wasn't one, and lack of damage to the bathtub. And we saw there was very little rubble left over. And we saw the steel turning to dust as it fell, trailing dust. So here was these huge buildings that turned to dust in midair right in front of our faces on TV. Why did so few people see it? That's the question we should all be asking. When I was being accused of being a government shill or a plant and promoting disinformation, one of the things that shelters me or saves me from that's verifiable is that in my RFC, that's the request for corrections to NIST, I stated what I talk about. Energy weapons, and this, the building was justified and so forth. And if I was a government shill, I'm forbidden from putting that in a government report because that would be treason. I could be charged with treason. Now, at the same time, let's look at the thermite story. Their RFC, which came about a month after mine, did not contain any mention of their so-called thermite evidence or molten metal. And, why would they go to the trouble of filing a request for correction to NIST and not include their claim to fame of thermite? With the Smith-Mundt Act, it really, it defends me and it incriminates others.
Yes.
But, that's why I think they're trying to take it off the books. But then someone posted somewhere that, I guess that's why Fetzer and Gage each had their, quote, hearings just outside the country line in Canada. Toronto and Vancouver.
My gosh.
They could do their propaganda in Vancouver.
Is that why they're having the conference in Vancouver?
That's what it seems like. And when somebody posted that, Fetzer posted right after that with one of his distracting rants, is totally ignoring that, trying to detract it. Well, I've had Judy on my show X number of times. I gave her unprecedented this, his normal spiel he does.
Sure. Huh.
The Judy Wood phenomenon is of that character, Richie, where it's not really a scientific movement so much as it has the characteristics of a cult. It's not a question of whether you have the degrees. Judy Wood has the degrees. It's whether you're being scientific by responding to the evidence. We have discovered in the U.S. Geological Survey dust samples, barium and strontium, lithium, lanthanum, yttrium, uranium, tritium, elements that would not be present were it not a nuclear event.
It's said that, quite a few different people actually say this and repeat it and repeat it. There's no evidence to that. They say, she totally ignores the dust analysis. She totally ignores the tritium values. She totally ignores, well, it's in my book. Mm. And that's what I presented at the energy conference, and that was really got people upset.
Right, and I think this is some people are trying to create illusions, saying that you don't reference the evidence. This is all part of the information management process.
And the evidence that I presented, for example, the tritium that was found, it shows that it's not at all the level that you'd find like in leaky nuclear plants, but it is along the same in the same range you would expect for something like cold fusion. Right. Or what has been termed cold fusion.
It appears to have involved a very sophisticated arrangement of mini or micro nukes that were sequenced to bring down the building the buildings from the top down, blowing, for example, 1 cube at 10 floors at a time. These are mini or micro. They can have a radius of destruction dialed to, for example, 100 feet. Those buildings were 208 feet on a side. If you had them in the core columns, for example, with a destruction radius of 100 feet, then you're pretty much accomplishing what we saw on 9/11.
we're being made into a culture of lies, a people of lies, a country of lies, a nation of lies. And lying kills you. It's a disease. It's very infectious. It's not only infectious, but it's corrosive. And when in the truth movement, what we see is lies being generated and stirred up, and then regenerated and re-stirred up. And finally, what will happen to a culture that's built on lies? They will be completely without any strength whatsoever, won't they?
Ironically, and I think Andrew could probably recall the phrase, something that Gerard Holmgren used to get revved up about. They call it. He said they should call the group something like Liars for Truth.
Yeah.
It's okay.
We were just coming up with, because we've got all these 9/11 truth groups. You got firefighters for 9/11 truth, pilots for 9/11 truth. And then we've got architects and engineers for 9/11 truth, and scientists for 9/11 truth, lawyers for 9/11 truth. That's another one. So it's from lawyers for 9/11 truth to liars for 9/11 truth. It's not a big leap, is it? So, we kind of come to these conversations when we're feeling a bit down, and we have to kind of cheer ourselves up a bit in some very twisted way.
It's like there's a different flavored fishing lure out there for every profession.
And it's back to that herd mentality. This group of people will follow the leader, and this other group of people, like the architects, they will follow Gage, and then there's another group of people who are going to follow Fetzer, Uncle Fetzer, I believe is what people call him now.
Uncle Fester.
Uncle Fetzer.
But the engineers who look at architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, I have known some who look at it and realize it's bogus, and they go back to the official story or just throw their hands up and say, well, that's bogus. So I'm not, there's no validity to those questioning 9/11.
I was a supporter of architects and engineers 9/11 Truth for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Came across the work of Dr. Judy Wood in her book, Where Did the Towers Go? First, by hearing Jesse Ventura on your show, I believe in 2011, mention her name. Her work is astounding, and the evidence shows that thermal and kinetic means were not employed in the destruction of the World Trade Center complex. Richter scale data is enough itself. It shows that there were no...
Sure, so what's your question?
If you would have her on, and regardless of where you stand, if you'd have her on and have yourself...
Sure. Let me answer that question. And I appreciate your call. I am the founder of questioning 9/11. I mean, there was NORAD stand down. The hijackers were trained at U.S. bases. That's Sacramento Bee, Associated Press. That means I question there needs to be a real investigation. Bush and Cheney weren't under oath, blah, blah, blah. They then turn that into, Alex says, like Wile E. Coyote, Bush blew up the towers. So then again, they misrepresent. I say, hey, they've got weather weapons. It's on History Channel. That turns into, I say, Obama sent a tornado. So they build straw men around what I've really said about 9/11. I want to go with, hey, they said they blew up Building 7. We have scores of newscasts saying they blew it up. Then they say, don't say that, it's a conspiracy theory, when I have BBC, CNN, you name it, saying it. So I wanted to stick with that. People can debate and argue all day in 9/11 Truth what they think happened. Not Judy Wood, and I've let Ventura come on and promote her. I mean, that's fine. I didn't say anything when he brought it up. I don't know her. I know some of the people associated with her got really vicious towards Stephen Jones, Professor, and other people, and then I got attacked by people saying I was covering up what happened, and I better have people on. So when I'm approached like that, I immediately just go, wow, this is like a weird academic fight, like different schools of Darwinism or something fighting with each other. I've just stayed out of it. Okay? And that's basically the end of it. And then I'm attacked everywhere for just sticking to what I think is the most important evidence of prior knowledge and involvement. There's your answer.
When people think you make them think, they will like you. When you really make them think, they will hate you.
Well,
and so I'm thinking of why were people attracted to this truth movement? First of all, do you think that those who planned 9/11 just forgot to plan a cover-up? They're going to, leave a paper trail to the front door? And why are people so easy to manage? And I came to the conclusion, and I've also got the idea from a particular blog by Jack Pelham. Yeah, it was a beautiful concept, using that same quote, that people who recognize that something wasn't right on 9/11, they thought they're clever. And so they joined the truth movement, and they're getting pats in the back. Yeah, you're clever. You figured out the official story is wrong. Aren't you wonderful? But they don't go beyond that because they think they're thinking. Yes. They're not really thinking.
Have you or a loved one ever found yourself saying something like this?
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th.
Or this?
Yeah, come on. Listen, there has never been a conspiracy in this country.
Or this?
And conspiracy theories are bullshit.
Then you might be suffering from cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance? What's that? The theory of cognitive dissonance was first posited by American social psychologist Leon Festinger in 1957 to explain the discomfort and mental stress that we feel when our beliefs, ideals, or values don't match up to reality. Festinger's theory states that when people are in a state of dissonance, that is, when their beliefs or values don't match up with their behavior or experiences, they will adjust those beliefs or values, or even adjust their perception of reality in order to achieve consonance. Furthermore, Festinger showed that people will actively avoid situations or information that might challenge those beliefs and values in order to avoid dissonance. I don't talk about the buildings as much anymore because, for one, I'm not a physicist. I don't claim to be one. I think she's made basic flaws in physics. Cognitive dissonance? What's that?
The Corbett Report recently talked to Barry Cooper about his involvement in the Bohemian Club of San Francisco. Dr. Barry Cooper, I understand that you're a member of the Bohemian Club of San Francisco.
Well, I am. It's a social club, and it's one of the attributes of it is we don't talk about it.
Mr. Gage, why don't you mention any of the large, very important empirical evidence from 9/11 on your website or in the presentations?
Do you ever mention the Grove when you're talking to your students about the power structures that govern global geopolitics?
I doubt it.
Why did you take all this smoking gun evidence, such as the thermite that's supposedly peer-reviewed? Why did you never file that in a court of law? Yet Dr. Judy Wood took all the evidence, just a brief sum that I mentioned. And she filed that in a court of law, and it went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court in October of 2009. So why have you never filed this evidence in a court of law to pursue NIST and the people that engaged with NIST in the conflict of interest relationship to use our tax dollars for those phony 9/11 investigations?
This is an important discussion. I'm just trying to kind of carry it along so others have an opportunity. And I don't want to cut you short. I'm not an attorney.
Don't you think it would be a good idea to talk about 2-week outings with presidents and advisors and academics and other luminaries in front of 40-foot stone owls?
I don't know. I mean, generally what I do in my classes is I take texts and discuss what the texts mean.
I see.
You ban all your members that just message you sharing evidence, asking. I honestly want to know.
Let him talk. Let him talk. I'll answer your question.
Festinger showed that people will actively avoid situations or information that might challenge those beliefs and values in order to avoid dissonance. William Binney spent 30 years with the NSA before resigning in 2001 and beginning a whistleblowing crusade over the agency's flagrant violation of the U.S. Constitution. Now, he has joined forces with Richard Gage, signing the petition from Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, calling for a new investigation into what really happened on 9/11/2001. This is a GRTV feature interview with our special guests, William Binney and Richard Gage. I don't talk about the buildings as much anymore. I will talk about the issues that I'm more interested in, and Dr. Judy Wood is not one of them. This is a GRTV feature interview with our special guests, William Binney and Richard Gage. First of all, Richard, obviously, my regular listeners will be familiar with yourself and your organization, but there's always new listeners joining in. Why don't you just explain to us what Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth is?
It's amazing that they would delete someone's account completely to prevent them from sharing facts before they ever even had shared those facts, regardless of how they feel about those facts.
We're a nonprofit organization of over 2,200 architects and engineers.
I sent you the question in an email if you had heard about any of this evidence and why you weren't talking about it. But you banned me from your petition. You never responded to my email.
What's your name again?
Abraham Davis Rodriguez.
Now demanding a real investigation of what happened at the World Trade Center. We have over 19,000 other individuals joining us demanding a real investigation based on the specific evidence, the scientific evidence for explosive controlled demolition. At all three World Trade Center skyscrapers on 9/11.
Now, tell us specifically about the petition that's available for signing by architects and engineers and other supporters at ae911truth.org.
The petition demands of Congress a real investigation
They want a new investigation? Well, read my book. There you go.
Yes.
If they're calling for a new investigation, what they're doing is admitting that they are not capable of conducting an investigation.
How true.
Well, as I'm sure you're aware, the implications of the petition that you have signed are, if you'll excuse the pun, quite explosive. Fessinger showed that people will actively avoid situations or information that might challenge those beliefs and values in order to avoid dissonance. If you'll excuse the pun, quite explosive.
A 110-story building above us, and I'm looking up at the sun.
And a split second later, I opened up my eyes, and I was just sitting there, totally numb, looking up at blue sky.
they had to have enough explosive force to take out not only the core columns, but the floors and everything else in the building.
Well, as I'm sure you're aware, the implications of the petition that you have signed are, if you'll excuse the pun, quite explosive, insofar as they do posit a fundamentally different narrative of 9/11 than the one that we've been told all of this time. And obviously, this hinges on an extremely important detail. I suppose you could call it a detail, whether or not these buildings were taken down as the result of a controlled demolition. But as I've said over and over and over again on my podcast, I am perfectly happy to let all of the people who want to continue their internecine squabbles over the demolitions of the buildings and to concentrate on that 100% as if 9/11 truth equals the buildings. And I will continue to concentrate on all of the other aspects of 9/11. And if that is the case, if we can establish that scientifically, that does fundamentally change the narrative of who was involved and what the government knew and what has taken place in the meantime. I have recommended hundreds of books over the years. I think we, after 13 years of waiting for Amy Goodman or some other reporter to descend from the heavens and offer this information to the public, I think at this point we can pretty much determine who's going to talk about this topic and who isn't. We do not need any of these outlets. And that's not to say that we can't celebrate the good work that they do and use the good work that they do. They do some good work, so let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, but let's just not rely on them for reporting about 9/11. Have you read Dr. Judy Wood's book, Where Did the Towers Go? What caused steel-reinforced concrete, office furniture, filing cabinets, computers, toilets, basins, and people to turn to dust? Why were so many cars so strangely toasted?
I don't know. I mean, I can't see, what's down in there.
Right.
I don't think there were space rays that cut holes in those buildings.
All right, I'm definitely not sure about space rays, but all I know is it doesn't appear to be thermite. Could thermite do that?
I don't know.
Gage, you just talked about thermite for 2 hours. How can you possibly not know if thermite could do that or not? Could thermite do that?
I don't know. If it were placed in all the beams in that particular area, I imagine it could.
But why not? But why not the whole? Building 7 clearly gone. The tower is clearly gone. These buildings standing with weird cookie cutter holes in them.
Yeah. No, it's weird. I agree with you.
That's just more like the same kind of stuff. There's climbing in the building. And then the cars. The cars are
Richard Gage.
Something else that I.
Kareem? You're Kevin's son. Yeah. Fatma? Yeah. You're her son.
No. What goes on here is outstandingly suspicious and weird. Kareem Barrett, Professor Kevin Barrett's son, comes over and interrupts my interview with Richard Gage. Kevin Barrett is another outspoken member of 9/11 Truth, who's a former professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, who allegedly lost his tenure for standing up for the issue of 9/11 Truth. The problem I have with Mr. Barrett is that he does not seem to want to go into certain issues. As well, I know that Kevin Barrett, as I have met him in the past, has raised his son to be more respectful and courteous than to interrupt an on-camera interview. My only conclusion on this matter can be that Mr. Barrett, who was within earshot of my conversation with Mr. Richard Gage, purposely sent his son over to interrupt and run interference on my interview. This, of course, being done because of the kind of information that I was bringing up.
Some of these cars, this toasted, where they're not so warped, that would be explained, I would think, by falling molten iron droplets, which is what you have.
It's insane to think that you know, thermite's going to do anything to the towers. It's going to in 8 seconds. It's used mainly in welding. It's also used by the military because it melts things, to melt a gun barrel, so you don't need to collect your enemy's guns when you invade their town. Or their village. You just make all their guns useless. But it's also used for burning paper. Like if you have top secret documents and the enemy is invading your camp, you just, poof, burn all your papers instantly. So that's what they use it for. But it would also look like a 4th of July sparkler.
Everybody clamors, Dr. Wood, for a new investigation. We're not going to get it from the government, but we need an independent entity to do it. And Dr. Wood is as independent as you can be. Would you agree?
Oh, yes. It is as independent as it can be. And that is the problem. By design, they don't want it to be independent. They just want to call for an independent investigation because it sounds right. And most of the people who are members of the 9/11 Truth Movement, the so-called Truth Movement, I think are there for good, well-meaning purposes, but they get hoodwinked and derailed, and a con job pulled on them, and they buy into it and they become invested in it, and they're taught to memorize this list of talking points that are just drilled in. Like this idea about thermite. Sure, there's aluminum dust and iron dust, but what does that have to do with what happened to the buildings? I've yet to see any connection with that. And even Niels Harrit, who was the first author on that, quote, peer-reviewed thermite paper, says that we shouldn't speculate on how it was used. None of the authors can agree on what it was used for. They don't know.
Is everyone trying to decredentialize Dr. Judy Wood?
Architects and engineers from 9/11 Truth, that you're calling them a psyop. You're saying that they're a distraction. Yet this one woman who wrote this book trying to convince everyone that it's space lasers that brought down the World Trade Center.
So that right there eliminates laser beams from space.
What in this book that you want to call a psyop that's disputable? What in this book do you want to dispute? Which part of it? I have 500 pages.
Look, I don't want to talk about that book.
So we're meant to believe
one woman who
that the
wrote
Twin
this
Towers
book
were
trying
brought
to
down
convince
by a
everyone that it's
machine
space
that could be
lasers that
foiled
brought down the
by
World Trade Center.
Foil. What's worse is now I'm accused of being a coward and too afraid to actually go after her theories. But not anymore, because I've got myself a copy of her book, Where Did the Towers Go? Evidence of Directed Free Energy Technology on 9/11. Evidence of Directed Free Energy Technology on 9/11. Yeah, I gave myself the challenge of reviewing the chapters and the interesting theories it contains.
Why is it that they say Judy Wood's theory, hypothesis, and they never say evidence? Why is that?
To instill doubt. It's a way of being able to undermine the credibility of evidence. It's a way of denying evidence, marginalizing evidence. And for example, there were firefighters waiting in knee-deep water right after the event. On 9/11, there was a water main that was broken, and they're wading through it. Yet folks say that it was real hot, molten metal. Did they use their waders to go through the molten metal? It doesn't make sense. They don't stop to think. And if it was molten metal, where's the resolidified big nuggets of solidified metal?
And I have a sample of this molten metal. Previously, molten metal here. Just a tiny sample. This is really all we need.
The first layer of the 9/11 cover-up is the official and physically impossible Al-Qaeda-centered fantasy, accompanied by the significantly fraudulent NIST reports. The second layer of the cover-up includes supposedly more scientific analysis by some researchers, scientists, which suggest that bombs and/or thermite, or some variant thereof, were placed in the WTC. A number of higher-profile 9/11 skeptic figures claim there is good evidence for the use of thermite and/or bombs, but those same researchers have failed to compile any of this evidence into a legal case against NIST or anyone else.
And when I think about these things, how people and their groupthink manipulates them, it's more or less what happened on 9/11. If you don't believe the official story, and I think that a lot of people are not believing the official story, then you have multiple doors. And those who perpetrated it knew this. As you and I have talked about, Lenin said it best, the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. Let's create a few other alternative stories. So if they don't believe the official story, give them thermite. If they don't believe thermite, give them nukes. If not, demolitions. And it goes on and on and on. And because
they're given an answer, right?
Exactly.
They're given an answer, and people like answers to questions. As soon as they have an answer, they quit looking for for what happened. They feel like it's been solved for them. So if you don't like the lie behind door number one, a lone gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald, shot the president. Well, we'll give you a lie behind door number two. If you don't like the lie behind door number two, we'll give you a lie behind door number three. Anything to keep people occupied in those doors so they don't turn around and see the wide open field of evidence behind them. And the same for 9/11. If you come out of the lie number one door, 19 bad guys with box cutters, they steer you into door number two, thermite. And then if that one doesn't work, well, you come out, well, they have lie behind door number three waiting for you. They keep you in those doors. That's the false choice. As long as you have to, oh, let's see, it's either thermite or the official story. Thermite or the official story. That's a false choice. It's like, have you stopped beating your spouse yet? Any answer to that question is incorrect.
That's right.
It's a false choice, and it's a gotcha game. But if you're not aware that's what they're doing, you get sucked in, and it must be thermite because it's not the official story. The buildings were not vaporized. Vaporization implies heat.
And lastly, we have the hypothesis championed by Dr. Judy Wood, a violent opponent of the nanothermite evidence, who instead insists that the towers were vaporized to dust.
This is a slick thing because most people don't realize that difference. So if they start repeating my work saying, oh, she says it was vaporized, the person is innocent motives. They just don't realize the difference between turning to dust and vaporization. That right there, whatever they say after that, it can be refuted because vaporization is inappropriate.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, that's
it's
right.
Very slick maneuver, and I'm glad you didn't repeat it, but you didn't catch what was going on with that one. That was
very subtle.
A really slick one that he was just slithering through there.
I remember from 3-4 years back that his picture was different. You can see he's changed all the contrast. And he said in his presentation, this was thermite. So what's he doing? Saying, yeah, this is thermite. I'm a physicist. I know what I'm talking about. Don't look at the building turning to dust, which is what's actually happening.
A lot of the truthers have said is, evidence of molten metal, but we haven't determined that it's hot. Perhaps it's metal, perhaps it's liquid, but it's not hot. And if this thing had been digging down in and pull up something, certainly these jaws would have heated up, and from thermal conductivity, this would be hotter than 82 degrees centigrade. And above 82 degrees centigrade, there's permanent damage to these things.
Mm-hmm.
There were no reports of malfunctioning equipment and destroyed equipment because it was too hot.
We have the videotapes. The firefighters reporting molten metal like a slurry or a steel mill or a volcano. Those are quotes. Giant pools.
What about the pictures of them dragging oxygen hoses all over the steaming supposed hot metal? If it were that hot, you wouldn't dare do that, would you?
Well, we do have the infrared photos of the molten metal.
Well, again, what melted the metal? Was it heat?
That's a very good question. It's also one of the first times I've heard Alex Jones speechless. Here's this famous USGS image that folks say is evidence that it was high heat. They claim that at point E, it was 819 degrees Fahrenheit. Water boils at 212 Fahrenheit. This guy doesn't look like a boiled chicken. John Hutchison tried to reproduce all of the effects that Tesla had talked about, or many of them, and got this weird set of data that's parallel to what we saw at the World Trade Center. Jellification, bent beams, slow bending of metals, shredded metal structures, peeling appearance, like in the cars, fusion of dissimilar materials. There's a whole list of things. But there's one that might be interesting to you. Metal luminance without heat. It looks like the metal's glowing, but without being hot.
John has been working with field effects for more than 3 decades. The effects from these experiments are the result of interference zones. That is, the result of interfering several beams or fields of varying frequencies of electromagnetic energy in a target zone. Some listeners may not know who you are and the work that you've done. Can you just bring listeners up to date with the work that you're doing right now and how you got involved?
Well, I replicated the work of Nikola Tesla and others a long time ago, back in the 70s, and then it was caught by some scientists who came to visit me and then promoted it to the government of the United States. And what I'm doing is levitation at a distance, as well as transmutation of common metals to impossible alloys. So I was one of the first ones on the Star Wars program, where we gave demonstrations to Colonel John Alexander and Los Alamos National Labs, then on to the Canadian government, McDonnell Douglas and many others, and I brought it to main media by a demonstration on Canadian television. So no degrees, just an interest in engineering and building old machines and that kind of thing, really.
Just go back a bit and explain the science to listeners a little bit about the creating a static field and then the interference zones from the static fields. And maybe is this a connection to what George Pigott was doing or other scientists?
I would say that, okay, going into it is going into like producing certain RF radio waves, frequencies, and high electrostatics, creating standing columnar waves that are projected out at a great distance. It takes a lot of tuning, a lot of engineering to create these effects, and the effects are incredibly strong compared to the power input. They can take a 3-inch steel bar and turn it into a knot, basically through the jellification of the metal. And I'm only working with 110 volts, maybe 50 amperes, household current doing this stuff. And it's been well documented by many different people. These effects seem to, I feel, tap into 0-point energy. And I can relate some of the articles that were accepted by the U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command was a report written by René Louis Vallée of France, the father of the neutron bomb, who did write up a report on what I was doing and the energy potential.
For example, Hutchinson effect has been debunked over and over and over, so I absolutely do not think that there's any valid reason for believing that Dr. Judy Wood is right on any of the things that she's talking about.
I can't believe I even have to do this, but here's this video called The Hutchinson Effect, and it goes on and on about some Judy Wood garbage. Ooh, whoa, but look over here. You can even see it right there. Goddamn rope. There's a wire. They're moving around on a wire. See it? There's the wire. They edited this part of the video out on purpose. They go on to talk about Tesla coils and free energy and batteries that last forever and a lot of other feel-good propaganda for the scientifically ignorant. Judy Woods and Jim Fetzer and the rest of them that don't believe there were any planes used on 9/11, that was all just holograms or fake footage or whatever.
Yeah, you're allowed to ask about planes. What do you want to ask about planes? Oh, right.
What I say about the planes is, what I show is the buildings turned, I like to go with what I can observe did happen. The buildings turned to dust in midair. Planes can't do that. Real planes can't do that. Neither can fake planes. So the plane issue is irrelevant to what happened to the buildings.
That a giant death ray from space came and
In my research for this show, I came across numerous references accusing you of claiming that this was some sort of ray gun from outer space kind of scenario, and yet I can't find anywhere where you actually say that.
I've never said it, and when I came out with this first line of evidence, which showed the bathtub survived, the seismic impact wasn't as great, the building turned to dust, there are these cylindrical holes, these cutouts in it, there's toasted cars, and presented it in Seattle, came back, and it was the 11th of November at Berkeley. Stephen Jones gave a talk where he talked about Judy Wood's ray beams from space and space beams.
Is that where it originated, this false
The first
story?
time I ever heard it.
That a giant death ray from space came and melted metal.
Also, because of the evidence of lack of high heat, you can eliminate the explanation of some kind of thermal energy weapon as the mechanism of destruction.
But not wood and dustified steel, even though the columns are made of concrete. Please, people, why do you pay attention to this? That's what's wrong with our country. Stupid, gullible people. And the best is, incompetent people are unaware of their own incompetence.
Here we have a collection of samples from 1979 to 1989 of metal pieces done by the Hutchison effect apparatus. As you can see here, the crumbling material here is off the end of this bar here. And actually is a transmuted material that is unknown in the metallurgical handbooks. And this particular sample has been to Germany, in the United States, United States National Laboratories, also in Japan and other locations. And extremely rare material. It appears to be a major transmutation. Now, getting into another sample here, we find a heavy piece of what they call extruded brass that exploded with inside itself, ripping it into this pattern here, ripping it apart. This is extrusion alloy, not cast aluminium. And if you observe very carefully, there's a shadow of the knife itself embedded in the metal here on the back. Well, that's a stainless steel kitchen knife embedded in a piece of extruded alloy. On the other side of the coin, we come to something that looks like it was ripped apart or turned to jelly and ripped apart and frozen in time and space. This large aluminum sample, again extrusion alloy, was once one piece and was totally formed like this after some experiments, actually seen on video. We come to more hard materials such as stainless steel that are just bent and twisted around. There's a lot of little pot marks and pieces falling out of it. Again, similar to the large piece of steel that I just mentioned, for being the very first sample. And this is just many samples that I do have and that other people do have that still are undergoing analysis around the world. And new theories are coming up almost weekly on what has happened here.
This was in Baker's Trust, which was across the street from Tower 2. That's pretty weird. How do you get it to bend like that or wrinkle up? Looks like a curling ribbon. If you get a beam to buckle, that's one mode. Here's another mode. It sure doesn't do that.
we want to jump in basically behind his production.
Send everybody back here when they're going live, we'll go.
Basically, guerrilla information warfare.
Anybody want this?
Target of opportunity.
When you go back to the
What are you going to say? We're just going to chant that 9/11's an inside job.
What this is, I can't say how it happened, how 9/11 was done, because I wasn't there in the operating room. What I can say is how to reproduce each one of these effects. Well, here's this guy named Nikola Tesla that we don't learn much about in high school. Well, John Hutchison wanted to replicate some of Tesla's work. He can reproduce all of these effects. Same thing we saw on 9/11. Now look at these jellification kind of weird things, and the two in the top are from the WTC, and the two in the bottom are from John Hutchison. The same kind of curly metal and while the gizmos turn on, it's like Jello. And I make an analogy with it like the game of musical chairs. So using that same kind of idea, let's say, well, the music's playing, a type of music, the energy system, that all the molecules are kind of up and moving around, and the music stops playing. They've got to grab hold, and sometimes they don't grab hold in the right place, or get all the way back together. But while the music's playing, the material is like Jello. It's just easy to flow and to bend without heat. It's like the molecules have let go of each other.
I found it hard to believe that it actually bent because of the size of it and how there's no cracks in the iron. It bent without almost a single crack in it. It takes thousands of degrees to bend steel like this.
Typically, you'd have buckling and tearing on the tension side, but there's no buckling at all.
And architects, engineers, people who work with steel, welders have just never seen the level of destruction and the level of deformation of this material in our lives.
Is there one artifact that stands out for any particular reason for you?
I think the lack of artifacts stands out to me quite a bit. I think the fact that I haven't seen a door, I haven't seen a phone, I haven't seen a computer, I haven't seen a doorknob. I think that stands out. But for the things that we have seen, every now and then we'll come across a stuffed animal that might have been on somebody's desk. Pictures that were on people's desks that we're trying to restore.
Hello. Where do you want us?
And then we have, okay, here's the aluminum block. Now he has that plywood platform, and he had a piece of aluminum on it. And after he was done playing around, he realized the aluminum was stuck to the wood and chopped it out. And then somebody ground it down. And you can see that the wood is right, abruptly fused to the aluminum. If aluminum is hot enough to melt, it's going to be burning up that wood.
Yes.
So how do you explain that? the two at the top are from the World Trade Center.
Mm-hmm.
The top left image is the only remaining file cabinet
Mm-hmm.
that belonged to Ben and Jerry's, and it had dollar bills in it, $20 bills in it that the police were able to return to the owners of the Ben and Jerry's store. And even colored folder dividers in it that weren't burned. So it's not heat that did that. And it's a clump of coins in the top right picture. It looks like a stack of pennies there. Zinc melts at a pretty low temperature. And well before copper, it even boils before copper even melts. So you kind of expect there to be some explosions or something if this was all melted together, because zinc is one of the lowest melting things. And you get, it looks like a nickel or something in there. You get all different kind of coins, but that is not melted together from heat. A lot of people assume that and use that as proof of that. But if you start looking at it and thinking at it carefully, there's something else going on there.
Oh, yeah.
And I wish to extend my thanks to Dr. Judy Wood for taking time out of her schedule for this interview. And on behalf of our ragtag band called DC 911 Truth, I welcome you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Dr. Greg Jenkins set up an ambush interview in a side room at the National Press Club, Washington, D.C. Why did Greg Jenkins plan this interview without telling anyone who knows Dr. Wood? Why did he bring at least 2 professional video cameras, recording equipment, special lighting, and a camera crew to the National Press Club that evening and not attend Jim Fetzer's presentation? Jenkins and/or his group tried to talk Dr. Wood out of going to the restroom, saying the interview would only take 2 to 3 minutes. But Dr. Wood felt she couldn't wait. She saw the cameras for the first time after she came back from the restroom. Dr. Wood insisted on switching seats with Greg Jenkins because there were other people in the room who were watching the interview, and Dr. Wood did not wish to be forced to sit with her back to them. The people helping Jenkins felt they needed to change the lighting and camera positions. As you can see in the video, Jenkins is well lit and Dr. Wood is half in shadow for most, if not all, of the interview. They set up their ambush 2 rooms away, out of sight of the Fetzer presentation. It is not clear how they got access to these rooms, as the doors seem to have been locked before they were there. How did Jenkins know Dr. Wood would be there? Who told him? She was a member of the audience on her way to the restroom when they asked her to answer the questions. And why did Jenkins keep his plans of this surprise interview a secret? Why did Greg Jenkins present his ambush interview as if Dr. Wood were the invited speaker at the National Press Club? Dr. Wood had no idea she was going to be interviewed, much less filmed. But she did agree to sit down for 1 or 2 questions on the condition that no permission would be granted until she had authorized the final product. Jenkins did not obtain a notarized signature, and no preview was ever offered by him or anyone connected to him before he posted the video on Google, though he had agreed to do so, sharing an email and a phone number. But both the number and the email address turned out to be fraudulent.
All right, I guess the first question is you have come up with some ideas regarding space-based weapons and the demolition of the World Trade Center towers. And I was wondering if you could give like an overview of the proposed types of weapons that could be used for such a thing.
We haven't really got into listing them yet, just energy weapons.
In what form?
I don't think we even need to define it. What we did was assemble the pictures, evidence that we trusted, and just going through the evidence, just looking at it, because at that point, what sort of motivated this paper was, wait, we've been told this story, that story, that story. Let's wipe the slate clean and start over. Let's see what evidence we do believe instead of relying on this rumor mill You know, we're told about molten metal, but nobody's ever seen a picture of these rivers of molten metal. Let's see if we can find any pictures of it. Let's see what we can see. And so I started just looking through pictures and pictures and pictures. What were they telling me? What's the evidence?
Okay.
And what categories of information? And you start putting these categories of information together, and it starts building in one direction and eliminating various other possibilities.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, no matter what the beam that is used in the situation, will involve, I guess the term you use is dustification of metal, or I guess another way you could get
We're
rid
trying
of
to invent a new word.
is yeah, might as well, right? Will involve, I guess the term you use is dustification of metal, or I guess another way you could get
We're
rid
trying
of
to
it
invent a new word.
is yeah, might as well, right?
Well, poof, you know?
Yeah, and or the vaporization of the metal in the towers, one or the other. Have you done any energy calculations at all to get a scale for what is involved for doing that?
But we don't need to get distracted by those values.
I've come up with an energy scale for the problem. If you use, like, say, a photon beam, a laser beam of some kind, you run into some problems, and namely the amount of energy required to evaporate the steel in the towers is.
Wait, you're specifying evaporation.
Sure.
What about dustification?
The buildings were not vaporized. Vaporization implies heat.
Will involve, I guess the term you use is dustification of metal, or the vaporization of the metal in the towers, one or the other.
The buildings were not vaporized. Vaporization implies heat.
She thinks that there was this beam weapon pointed at the Twin Towers that somehow vaporized the steel.
The buildings were not vaporized. Vaporization implies heat. Also, because of the evidence of lack of high heat, you can eliminate the explanation of some kind of thermal energy weapon as the mechanism of destruction. So that right there eliminates laser beams from space.
Dr. Wood says maybe there's a beam of laser or microwave from space or something that came down and...
So that right there eliminates laser beams from space.
One of Dr. Wood's hypotheses is a space-based weapon powered by free energy.
Okay.
Well, she claims that free energy gizmo powered the laser beam from space.
Yeah.
And which is totally incorrect. I'll say right now what the title of my book means. It shows evidence of what happened on 9/11. That evidence shows a technology was used that we haven't seen before, but that technology doesn't have to be used to destroy buildings. That same technology can be used for good and can be used to provide free energy to the world. So what technology was demonstrated on 9/11, the evidence from that is also evidence that free energy technology exists. People were saying that energy weapons don't exist. Well, then what do you think the Star Wars program was created for if energy weapons don't exist?
Well, that's right, and I think it's very important that I think you'd obviously realised by then that what you'd seen in the evidence wasn't like anything else that you knew about. It wasn't something that was in the public eye at all. It was something which you didn't know what it was at that time. You just knew, as you said, it knew what didn't fit any of the categories. That it wasn't bombs, it wasn't laser beams, it wasn't anything like that.
I'm not even saying that the U.S. government did it, but I'm saying that those who study energy weapons probably have a lot better idea than I do.
Secretary, can I ask you a question about some of the technology that you're developing to fight the war on terror, specifically directed energy and high-powered microwave technology? When do you envision that you can weaponize that type of technology?
Goodness. It is in, for the most part, the kinds of things you're talking about are in varying early stages. Do you have anything you'd add?
I don't think I would add much. I think they are in early stages and probably not ready for employment at this point.
But you sound like you're willing to experiment with it.
I think that's the point, and I think, and we have, I think, from the beginning of this conflict, I think General Franks has been very open to looking at new things if there are new things available, and has been willing to put them into the fight even before they've been fully wrung out. And I think that's not referring to these two particular cases of directed energy or high-powered microwave, but sure. And yes, we will continue to do that.
Many folks criticize me and say, well, you need to name what the weapon was. No, I don't. I just know what I know that I know. I know what I can prove, and I don't go beyond that. I only go to where the evidence shows, and the evidence shows that you can rule out kinetic energy, you can rule out thermal energy, but you cannot rule out directed energy. And I don't need to name the serial numbers or what the operator had for breakfast and so forth, because we know that such a weapon exists. Because it happened.
I say to people that we know the general nature of the weapon, but we don't know who owns it. We don't, as you say, we don't have the serial numbers. We don't really know where it was particularly. So that's the way it is, because that's the only evidence that we've got.
We do know what evidence it produces because that evidence got produced.
All I've seen from Dr. Wood so far is a colorful picture book which continuously stresses the need to look at evidence in order to determine exactly what happened at the World Trade Center.
So your answer is no, you have not read the book, Where Did the Towers Go?
No, I have not read it. I don't own a copy. I would never buy it. I think that she's a distraction. The whole buildings were blown to Kingdom Come. I mean, that much is obvious.
So, although conventional explosives have been ruled out due to lack of noise and seismic evidence,
a controlled demolition. The buildings were blown up, man. They were blown to kingdom come along with the rest of the building.
If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong.
They had to have enough explosive force to take out not only the core columns, but the floors and everything else in the building.
To a psyop that's taking all the attention off who put bombs in those buildings.
Although conventional explosives have been ruled out due to lack of noise and seismic evidence,
they were blown to kingdom come along with the rest of the building.
It's like the molecules have, let go of each other.
Do you feel like me wearing that blue shirt, entering a stadium full of people wearing a green, red, and white shirt? Do you feel like that, isolated because there are so many other planted stories? Do you feel like the outsider?
It's somewhat. I realize this is what the game is. We have, the hall monitor who guards door number 1 and sends them into door number 2 if they come out. The lie behind door number 2 and so forth. And they're always keeping them occupied. So any door is good as long as it isn't the evidence. So all of them are united in trashing me because I only present evidence. I don't present any theories, but they call it a theory so they can discount it to keep people from looking at it.
I'm working 80 hours a week, harder than I've ever worked in my life. I'm managing a large organization of 40 volunteers with almost no funding. And I don't have time to sleep, much less file lawsuits. I don't even know how to do that.
And one thing I just noticed here on their website, it says they're a 501c3 nonprofit organization.
That means
Does
they
that
can't
mean-
lobby Congress for a new investigation.
That's what my next question was. Does that mean, I know they're religious groups.
Yes.
Religious groups cannot criticize the government from the pulpit if they're a 501c3. Is that correct, Deanna?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, good. I guess that answered some questions there.
Yes.
Results of quote-unquote scientific test carried out on AE 9/11 quote-unquote truth. June 21st, 2011. It was recently brought to my attention that a second AE 9/11 truth petition signer, Scott Kwajka, had remarks relating to the research of Dr. Judy Wood into the destruction of the WTC deleted from the biography section of his profile. When he saw that this had happened, he asked for his profile to be deleted. Therefore, it seems to be clear that they are attempting to censor the study of available evidence. I have included Mr. Kwajka's correspondence below, and the response he was sent by AE 9/11, and I thank him for allowing us to post this. It now seems to be the case that the behavior of the AE 9/11 group has been tested, and the results are repeatable. A previous test by Abraham Hafiz Rodriguez, who also mentioned the research of Dr. Judy Wood to Richard Gage, resulted in his name being deleted from the petition, initially without his knowledge. At an event in Peoria, Illinois, Abe Rodriguez asked Richard Gage why he was deleted from the petition. Gage's responses were rather vague and even contradictory. Similar results were obtained by We Are Change, Oshkosh. It should be pointed out that Dr. Judy Wood is the only person to initiate court action based on the scientific evidence pertaining to the destruction of the WTC. She is also the only person to complete and publish a comprehensive and independent forensic investigation into the destruction of the WTC. It seems that the conclusions of this forensic investigation are so important that whole organizations who claim to be oriented around truthful, open investigations have been tasked with covering up, muddling up, and attempting to discredit this research.
You know, you've got to completely change your mentality from one of being a passive receiver of information to one of an active seeker of information. That passive and active side of things is part and parcel of that communications problem. We can't force this information onto people.
Right. But often people are so like overworked and have not enough time, and it does take more time to sort through. So they start getting lazier and wanting somebody else to do their thinking for them and to do this for them and package it for them. So as I say, they turn their thinking over to someone else's keeping, and you know they get what they pay for. Sort of they they're led wherever that other entity wants them to go. And what is so important right now is for them to take their thinking back into their own keeping. Because how can you trust your thinking to somebody else? One other thing that is curious is the people in the Truther movement and also the Occupy Wall Street want to change the world. They want things to change by waving their flags or holding up their signs in the street. But if they really want to change things, expose this truth about 9/11. If we want to change the world, this would do it. Let the whole world have free energy.
Sure, absolutely.
Right.
I think you can't change this one thing. Everything changes in this if this opens up.
Now I'd like to read something. This is from EMT Patricia Androvic. And this is what she says. Okay. There's hundreds of cops all running up there. And I ended up running through this park. And I couldn't even see where I was running anymore. I kept running north. Question. Through North Park? Yes. I guess that's North Park. It's a big green grassy area. And there's nothing there. As I was running up there, 2 or 3 more cars exploded on me. They weren't near any buildings at that point. They were just parked in the street. The traffic guys hadn't gotten a chance to tow anything yet, because this was all during the first hour, I guess, of this thing happening. So there were still cars parked on the street, and that were completely independent of that. 3 cars blew up on me. Stuff was being thrown. I went home all bruised that day. Thank God it was only bruises. I just ran into this park along with a bunch of other people, and stuff was blowing up. I don't think I looked back, but you couldn't see anything. Everything was just black. I was running, and I was falling over people, because people were crawling on the ground because they couldn't see anymore. I just kept on running north. I could smell water, so I just kept on running towards the water, because I knew that my coat was on fire. And I figured, well, if I can see a boat over the water, I'm just going to jump onto the boat and take that thing to Jersey, because no one wants to blow up Jersey. Stuff is just blowing up behind me as I'm running. I can hear stuff exploding. I could hear rumbling. The street under me was moving like I was in an earthquake. I've been in those, so I know what they feel like. It felt like an earthquake. So what do you make of that, Dr. Judy, that first
she's describing what she was experiencing. One of the biggest things that jumps out at me with that is that I went home with bruises, all bruised that day. Thank God it was only bruises. She has stuff blowing up on her, and she only has some bruises.
Yeah, that is interesting.
She also had her hair catch on fire.
But nothing hit her.
Nothing hit her, and her coat
Somebody
caught
else
on fire too, right?
Yeah. She said instead of calling it a turnout coat, she called it a burnout coat. It's on fire. And because the dust going up and blocking out the sunlight, you couldn't see where you're going. But she said, well, now she's a human flashlight because her coat was on fire.
Now, wasn't that, like you said, the coat was meant to repel fire, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But it caught on fire. What would cause that?
Oh, it appeared to be fire. We're not going to call it fire.
Right, it appeared to be fire.
What appeared to be fire. Weird fire is what I've used because just something to mark it as not assuming it's fire. But it's something weird was going on. She also had her shoelaces appeared to go into spontaneous combustion. But she didn't get clobbered with any, she went home all bruised that day. Thank God it was only bruises.
Yeah, thank God it was only bruises. Everything is, So
But she doesn't describe being hit by anything.
No, not at all. And she also said it was independent of where the towers were, too, she said, didn't she?
So it was going north.
Yeah, so it's not like the towers fell on top of this and the gasoline was exploding inside the gas tank. It was,
but she wasn't burned.
Right, but they were lighting up.
Yeah, her hair appeared to catch on fire. But, she didn't talk about having been burned. There's also another Patrick Connolly, first responder who, when the towers was coming apart, he tried to get into Building 7. He decided that wasn't a safe place and came back out, couldn't see where he was going. And then thank goodness the cars started lighting up because then he could see where he was going.
That's the other one I was thinking of. Yep, everything just spontaneously. He literally said that they spontaneously lit up, and he could see. He said that.
And that actually is a more precise term, lit up. He wasn't saying caught fire. They lit up. This weird fire issue.
And you can't even really seem to provide a coherent view of what she's talking about or the physical principles thereof. And also, I should mention the toasted cars, for example, have been repeatedly shown to have, for example, the toasted cars on FDR Drive, which people have gone to absurd lengths to try to explain away. And also, I should mention the toasted cars, for example, have been repeatedly shown to have, for example, the toasted cars on FDR Drive, which people have gone to absurd lengths to try to explain away. All of this is by way of background of saying that there's absolutely nothing convincing that I've seen in her arguments. However, having said that, I'm also very skeptical about the, for example, the thermitic materials paper that was produced by Dr. Niels Harrit et al. I think there are some scientific questions that have been raised in the last year or two about that paper that I have not seen properly addressed. So I'm going to be keeping my eye out on that.
I just learned there were 1,400 cars toasted that day all over the streets of Manhattan.
No, that's right. The cars that didn't have anything fall on them were completely fried but expanding, just like a secret helicopter reportedly crashed. We know they're 30 years advanced what they really have, but there's another area that if you look at it, British physicists and others, and it turns out the government did measure this, you can confirm it, radioactive isotopes used in small nukes were picked up in levels off the charts in and around the towers.
No, I don't buy that. I don't buy that.
Now,
nukes were not used.
Well, the radiation was picked up. Now,
no, I don't buy it because when those towers went down, there was less impact than when they brought down the Superdome in Seattle. And there should have been way more. Those towers literally disintegrated. They went into dust. And nukes don't do that. Not at that level. Radiation would have been extremely high.
Well, I'll tell you, Tower 1 and 2 are very suspicious. But when you look at 7, that's a conventional controlled demolition.
No, it isn't. No, it was not either. Because because you got to read the book Where Did the Towers Go by Dr. Judy Wood, BS, MS, and PhD.
No, I know who she is. I know who she is.
I just finished her book. It's very remarkable.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree with you that Tower 1 and 2 exploded into pyrotechnic dust, and things were being ejected long distances. But 7, you can see the boom, 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 and the symmetrical collapse into its own footprint.
The NIST team found no evidence that explosives were involved in the collapse.
And our analysis showed that even the smallest explosive charge that was capable of bringing down the critical column in the building, had it occurred, we would have seen sound levels of 120 to 130 decibels about a half a mile away. That would have been an incredibly loud sound, and that sound was not picked up by any of the videos or witnesses that we have talked to.
But 7, you can see the boom, 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 and
looking like a Three Stooges movie covered with plastic. What do you got good shit, man? That's some good shit. Then we went back there. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
The current White House communications czar Cass Sunstein co-wrote a paper in 2008 for the Harvard Law School in which he advocated the government employ covert agents to infiltrate groups with views that the government opposes and disseminate government propaganda amongst them.
But 7, you can see the boom, 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 and
How come the seismographic data from New York City...
I don't understand the seismographic data. I haven't studied it. We have produced the evidence. I don't understand the seismographic data. I haven't studied it. We have produced the evidence. I don't understand the seismographic data. I haven't studied it. I'm working 80 hours a week.
I don't understand the seismographic data. I haven't studied it.
We have produced the evidence.
I don't know. It's very confusing. I'm an architect, not a seismologist. Sure.
Wait a minute. He's a architect in San Francisco and doesn't have any understanding of seismographs. What's wrong with this picture?
I want a good answer for why you silently banned me just for sharing evidence. This was before I even knew if she was right, which it seems she is.
Because Judy Wood's material is easily discredited in the eyes of a mindless public who can't even believe their own eyes.
What's far out about evidence?
Exactly right, and that's what I have defended in the past.
Let's not talk about the evidence because it'll what's the word to use? Discredit us. Let's talk about a different lie.
That's right. Let's talk about a different lie. Exactly.
We don't want every theory out there on our website in people's profiles. So we do censor the profiles. So that's what's coming.
Completely banned. And I just wanted to say, if anyone really wants an investigation, please read this book. It is the most important book I've ever read in my entire life. And just take it for yourself and please just read it.
Thanks, Abraham.
And Where Did the Towers Go by Dr. Judy Wood, please. Like, we're all on the same team.
Appreciate that very much. Next question. Right here. There are other people promoting other theories that have, in my mind, a whole lot less science behind them. They include people like Judy Woods, who has a theory.
I don't have a theory, but to cover up facts, you call it a theory and say it's unsupported.
They include people like Judy Woods, who has a theory that the directed energy weapons have brought down the Twin Towers, citing dustification of steel, which there's no evidence for in my mind, and other phenomena. Part of the effort to support this theory is to deny all of the extreme temperature evidence that you've seen up here, including the molten metal, the molten metal microspheres, the molten metal pools that the first responders see, the beams that were melted and documented by structural engineers.
That's another thing. I put my money where my mouth is. I contacted NIST, submitted a request for corrections. That was my act of whistleblowing, which qualified me to file a whistleblower case. And if somebody strongly believes that thermite was involved, then why, when they submitted their request for correction to NIST, they omitted any mention of thermite evidence or any mention of hot molten metal?
Amazing. True. And see, when like I said, I had Richard on the show a couple of times, and I have always kind of looked at your work, and I've looked at his work, and I've looked at other people's, I guess you could say, speculation or opinions, hunches, like we were talking about. And of course, Richard primarily talks about things like thermite. I've always kind of thought of that.
That's a theory that doesn't work. It's not evidence. It's a theory.
But in the back of my mind, I see it as if, when this first occurred, and of course you get the two sides of the aisle, the people that believe the official narrative and then people that want to believe something else. And I feel like perhaps the thermite was there to scoop those people up and to keep them from going deeper into the multi-layered conspiracy. That's what I've always thought. So
the second net. And once you figure that out, you can see it with everything out there.
Absolutely.
So I can't work toward a hypothesis that has very little, if any, evidence supporting it.
I don't understand the seismic record data. I haven't studied it.
When in fact it denies all of the evidence that we have. So we do censor the profiles. That is very, very well supported. I'm not going to present every piece of evidence out there that I can't explain. Scientific makes no sense to me. I'm not going to present every piece of evidence out there that I can't explain. What good does that do me or you?
everyone, whether they're for or against the president or for 9/11, whatever, everything is so emotional. And with all the knowledge out there, we have seemed to have abandoned logic and reason. Do you see that as a trend? And if so, then what in the world can we do to change it? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That's an excellent question, and that's spot on correct. It's the biggest problem we encounter. I mean, we are a Skeptic Society as a science organization, and the whole problem of critical thinking is huge in this country. People are swept up by emotions, particularly when it comes to religion and politics. People are emotionally invested in their positions and beliefs. People on the left and the right, Christians, Jews, Muslims, everybody are committed to their positions. That makes it very difficult to think critically and clearly about evidence. We don't. Yeah, I think what happens is these things get usually through some alternative media, and thanks to the internet, it fuels these things. I mean, look, we have to be in favor of free speech. The internet's the greatest thing since the printing press, but we also have to put up with the fact that goofy stuff is going to get printed as well and passed down as fact. So I watched.
So when you do the science, this guy that that says he's a physics professor and doesn't come up with this basic stuff that I learned as a hobby doing ballistics when I was 12 years old, can't understand why the building came down with the force of gravity. This is really absurd. As far as
Thank you.
Right? I mean, it's nuts. And
Yes.
and I watched that film. It was insensitive to the people that suffered. It was horrible. No, this kind of a person does not need to be teaching children about science
Yes.
when he doesn't even apply it himself.
Talking about Stephen Jones?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Mr. Shermer.
Yeah, I mean, his point is well made that the demolition experts that have published on the why the buildings collapsed point out that if it were a controlled demolition, when they bring a building down, they bring it down from the bottom up, and if you look at the videotape, you'll see the building collapses right at the point of impact. There are no explosions below that. There are no squibs going off, and then it goes down. It goes down right at that point where the plane hit, which is exactly what you'd expect. And as the caller said, all that huge amount of weight above it cascades down, and the floors collapse one after another at real-time speed. And the whole problem of critical thinking is huge in this country. People are swept up by emotions. And as the caller said, all that huge amount of weight above it cascades down, and the floors collapse one after another at real-time speed.
Michael Shermer is our guest. He's the publisher of Skeptic Magazine. By the way, how do people get that?
People can get Skeptic. Well, it's carried at all Barnes & Noble and Borders and Books A Million. All bookstores carry Skeptic, or of course you can just go to skeptic.com and order it there. It's a science magazine, but we also deal a lot with these kinds of fringe issues, politically loaded, religiously loaded controversies, all related to science and conspiracies. The fact we look for anomalies and then try to fit them into a conspiracy theory. Here's what happens in general is that no theory of anything explains all the facts. In science, this is called the residue problem. There's always a residue of unexplained anomalies that the primary theory that everyone accepts can't explain. What people do on the fringes is they take those anomalies and they try to construct a whole new theory, but the new theory doesn't explain all the old facts that the old theory explains just fine. So there's sort of a principle of parsimony here, that the most salient theory that explains the most facts is the one we should accept, even if there are still some unsolved mysteries, which is perfectly okay. We have to have a certain tolerance for ambiguity. We can't explain everything. But the fact is that, for example, Al-Qaeda and Osama said that they did it. They already
everyone, whether they're for or against the president, or the war, 9/11, whatever, everything is so emotional, and with all the knowledge out there, we have seemed to have abandoned logic and reason. Do you see that as a trend? And if so, then what in the world can we do to change it? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That's an excellent question, and that's spot on correct. It's the biggest problem we encounter. I mean, we are a skeptic society as a science organization, and the whole problem of critical thinking is huge in this country. People are swept up by emotions, particularly when it comes to religion and politics. People are emotionally invested in their positions and beliefs. People on the left and the right, Christians, Jews, Muslims, everybody are committed to their positions. That makes it very difficult to think critically and clearly about evidence. You know, we have to be in favor of free speech. The internet's the greatest thing since the printing press. But we also have to put up with the fact that goofy stuff is going to get printed as well and passed down as fact.
You first need to start out with what happened. That's the key. You first have to establish what happened before you can determine how it happened, before you can determine who did it or why they did it. But what did we hear on 9/11? They hate us for our freedoms. Bin Laden did it. And you know, he did it with instructing people to fly airplanes into the buildings. But what happened? That was never discussed. We were told how it happened, who did it, why they did it, but we weren't given the information to determine what actually happened. And if you don't first understand what your problem statement is, you know, what problem are you solving? If you don't know what happened, and you immediately start with how it happened, who did it, or what did it, you have to assume the what part of it. You have to assume what happened. So you're solving an imaginary problem, not a real problem, because you have to imagine what it was that happened. Who did it? What's it that got done? And that is a really key feature. And you know, few people realize that. That's what forensic science is about, is first looking at what happened. You don't need a theory to determine what happened. If the evidence doesn't tell you, then you aren't determining what happened.
210-story office buildings. You don't find a desk. You don't find a chair. You don't find a telephone, a computer. The biggest piece of a telephone I found was half of the keypad, and it was about this big. The building collapsed to dust.
The debris fields is amazing. It's beyond anything I've ever seen like that. I've seen collapses and demolition buildings, but nothing like this was unbelievable. Like I said, there wasn't a door, there wasn't anything to be found. It was all disintegrated, all rubble. Concrete was small little pieces, not even slabs. No desk, no furniture, no computers, no phones, no anything. So I imagine so the people were the same as the building, nothing left.
I think we should focus on who did it. I think it's very important that people focus on who did it. And if you study the 9/11 truth movement and since its conception, there's always been this certain group of people that has been behind everything. You have John Gould that had 9/11 blogger. You had Mike Berg. You had Luke Radowski, Jason Burmis. You had all these players that were trying to control how people perceived
Right.
what was happening in the 9/11 truth movement.
Right.
And,
Okay. Do you have a question at all? Yeah, we're familiar with that.
Yeah,
We'll come into that in a minute.
Yeah. Then if you look at who benefited from it, Larry Silverstein's one of them.
Do you have a question?
Louder.
Do you have a question?
Okay. I guess what is Judy Wood's perception on who was behind 9/11 and who benefited from 9/11 and all these wars that were precipitated from 9/11? I think that should be the main focus,
if you
not
could,
the buildings
okay,
falling.
Dr. Wood, if you'd like to answer that question. Dr. Judy Wood, by the way, yes.
Yes, I'm not part of the truth movement. I'm a scientist, a researcher. I conduct research and I write reports. That's what I do. And I conducted a comprehensive forensic investigation, the only one in the public domain, about what happened on 9/11. And if you do any kind of investigation of a crime, the first thing you must do is determine what happened. Before you can determine how it happened, you have to determine what it is. And then who did it. You have to define what it is. And once I had done that, I filed my information with NIST as a request for correction, which caused me to be a whistleblower.
Right.
Qualifying as a whistleblower, I was then eligible to file a federal QTAM case, whistleblower case, which I did. And the defendants in that case were companies that were manufacturers and developers of energy weapons.
Right.
And they also had a contract with the U.S. government to know everything about any weapon of mass destruction that exists or is being developed anywhere.
Right.
So not only would they know what weapon it was, but whose weapon it was. And they were going to be put under oath if that case went forward. That's the closest we can get to it.
That's absolutely. I was just going to try and add that, but you got there before me, which is great. And so All of that information is available. It's on the websites if you want to go and read it. You know, we only have a certain amount of evidence, and if you want to stick with the evidence, basically we do not have enough evidence to say who, quote unquote, did 9/11. We don't have that yet.
But we know who to ask.
Yeah, we know who to ask. We know who's closer to knowing who did it than we are. And they
would have been put under oath if this case had gone forward. And this case was dismissed from court with the judges actually stating in the written decision that they were ignoring the law to dismiss the case.
That's right. And
it was not dismissed on merit.
We've talked about this many times. You can go onto the websites and listen to other audios, and you can discover all of that information is there. That in itself is now evidence of what we've done to try and move this forward. So, and also this involves energy. It involves energy,
also
and that's what
evidence
we
of what
talk
has been
about.
suppressed.
Yes.
Yep.
And that is in common with the energy technology that's being suppressed, which would change the world.
Are we talking Judy Wood here? Well,
what is your view on the bathtub and also the lack of a bigger mound of rubble after these things were done?
I think there is plenty of rubble to account for what was in the buildings. I think that's a red herring, and I don't give Judy Wood any credibility whatsoever. So that's my answer to that whole issue. So.
Let's just consider that expression, truth movement. So where exactly would people like the truth to be moved to exactly? You know, over into this little corner where nobody can see it, which is essentially you know, what they've tried to do, because they've established this truth movement to move the truth out of view. That's what the truth movement has done.
At the time of making the series, I did a quick Google search, and when I discovered her and her cringeworthy hypothesis about how the Twin Towers collapsed, I laughed and shrugged it off and continued with my mini-series. Now the reason I didn't go after her theories is because they are at the very fringe of what the truther community actually believes. And they don't actually represent the truther community. And I thought, you know what, this is low-hanging fruit. If I go after her, I'm going to be accused of just going after the easy arguments, and I really wanted to stick my teeth into something quite beefy, if that makes any sense. I thought, you know what, this is low-hanging fruit. If I go after her, I'm going to be accused of just going after the easy arguments.
The Judy Wood phenomenon is of that character, Richie, where, you know, it's not really a scientific movement so much as it has the characteristics of a cult.
We also have Judy Wood with her theory that a space laser destroyed the World Trade Center. Never mind that this would require an possibly enormous laser to destroy a building this large.
All weapons that you could even possibly name, except for with the one exception of biological weapons, all weapons are directed energy weapons of one form or another.
No, she doesn't. Nobody knows what Judy Wood is talking about. I'm sorry. Nobody knows what she's talking about.
This is a game you're playing.
I'm really not playing a game.
If you're sending a beam of laser from space, you've got to have an enormous energy source in space to do that. And that's been looked at. It's tough. It's a tough problem. It's almost ruled out there. I don't think we have such a weapon. Thank goodness.
We now reach so many millions of people that the haters are the ones that are always going to call in first. And what that does is then distort what we're covering. You know, they're going to call in about chupacabras. They're going to call in about space beams.
Without a doubt, she's highly qualified to talk about the collapse of the Twin Towers.
Look at the cover of my book. What it shows, it's undeniable to anyone who looks at it. The building is just frothing up into dust.
In the first two chapters, Judy Wood doesn't actually stray too far away from what the truther community actually believe. However, in her third chapter, The Jumpers, she goes full bizarre. In this chapter, we get a glimpse at her quite frankly ludicrous hypothesis and why the majority of the truther community want nothing to do with her. This chapter revolves around the images of the people who were trapped on top of the World Trade Center and those who fell to their death. Now, to me, nothing more encapsulates the horror of that day than these images. But Dr. Judy Wood sees something very different. She thinks that these people who fell to their death are trying to show us, well, trying to give us a message.
Like the EMT on the bridge. She said you could feel the heat from the bridge.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
That's right.
So something people perceive as heat
Right.
may not necessarily be conventional heat.
Radiation of
Melissa
some.
Doy, who was the famous one that was called 911 and said, "Help! I'm burning up! I'm burning up! It's really hot! It's really hot! Nobody can breathe! Everyone's choking! I can't breathe! I can't breathe! The air is supposed to..." Not once did you hear her cough. And at first, I thought this was fake. But I thought, no, wait a minute, it can't be fake due to some various other reasons. So I put it aside until it finally clicked. This person thought they're hot, thought they're burning up. And, you know, when you're in a hot tub, there's a limit to how long they let you stay in there.
Yes.
Because after a certain point, your muscles do not function. You can't get yourself out.
Wow.
And so if somebody's really hot, you know, they might be talking like that. Not, it's really hot, I'm really burning up, nobody can breathe. No. She was hyperactive and no slurred speech. There was something else affecting her other than conventional heat.
She felt some sort of radiation. Right.
Some sort of energy field that felt like heat.
Right. Gave the sensation of heat.
Right. And it gave the sensation that she couldn't breathe, but she wasn't choking or coughing anytime during this 5-minute thing. And 5 minutes is a long time to be going on with this. That in itself was long enough time for her to be cooked.
And she's sitting in the fuming.
Or in those floors, I think it was 86th floor or something around there.
Mm-hmm.
But at first listening to it, you know, you have to realize it's like seeing glowing things sitting on a piece of paper. That something else is going on here. Like hot people are lethargic. They're not, you know, if they're overcooked and they cannot like get out of a hot tub or get out of the sauna if they're overheated.
We had someone in the chat say, Ruckus actually said, if I perceive heat, I say it's hot.
Right. Right. So she's perceiving something, whether it's conventional heat or something else. It's something is painful to her.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sensation, right?
Right. It's a sensation like the EMT on the bridge. She could feel some sort of sensation from there. And we know that can't be conventional heat that she was sensing from the bridge.
It's not burning. It's not going to burn you.
Right. It's not, well, it's not a conventional fire, but it's something else going on. And there's also various testimonies of the building coming apart and people coming apart up there.
Mm.
It's a pretty horrible, awful thing. And it was this fellow that I'm pointing to in the upper left corner, taking his pants off, that I sort of, you know, felt dedicated to, because somebody's got to tell his story, what he was experiencing. He's so giving us so much information there.
Mm.
And, you know, it's almost to waste a life by ignoring it. You know, these guys would want us to know what happened and to tell their story.
Oh, they would.
And that once I realized that, it was so much more easy to look at the images, because like I'm their spokesman. That's how I felt. I made them a promise.
So now, let's rate it. Tinfoil hats, which measure how much of a crazy conspiracy this is.
You get people riled up. You stir up their emotions, and they grab their pitchforks. They just want to go get somebody, and you aim at whatever you want to go get. And you know, that's not how you begin an investigation. You need to first establish what happened before you can even determine who did it. If you don't know what it was, you don't have a crime.
Well, definitely 4 out of 5. This thing is completely nutter butter so far.
One thing quite interesting is that this book has been out for almost a year. No one has been able to refute my book, and there's been a lot of interest in doing so. It's been irrefutable. The only thing they can do is to convince others that it is not what it is. That she talks about ray beams from outer space and, you know, lizard monsters from outer space, something, you know, bizarre that sounds bizarre.
So that they don't read it. So they keep them away from reading the book. I think more than getting into your information, Dr. Wood, I think what they're doing is preventing people from opening that door. That's simple.
Exactly. Or shading their vision before telling them what to see before they open the book.
Right. And because so-and-so who's very popular said XYZ, well, because somebody says XYZ, that means it must be true. But if you think for yourself and you're an independent thinker, folks, don't be followers. It's what I'm trying to convey to you.
And it's only going to get worse, people. It's only going to get worse. To believe that there's some kind of energy weapon fired at people, making them take their clothes off, and that we have no evidence for that.
They try to equate the evidence as though it's an opinion. And if it's an opinion, then if they discredit the opinion giver or whatever, then that's where they cover up the evidence.
That this thing exists at all, and that it was, you know, all this kind of jazz I've just been talking about for the last God knows however long. It's just absolutely ludicrous, and you have to be a special tinfoil hat wearing lunatic to believe in it. the bad sciences measured in shockaments. Well, to be honest with you, because I've read more and I know where this goes, I'm going to give it a low rating for now because it is incredibly bad. But it does have a few points in that are kind of, well, okay, we worked out that at free fall it's 9.2. All right, well done. So that's kind of all right. But still, it's just so shitty with the beam weapon and stuff. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. It's still a horrifically bad science. Now, next, normally I do Hawk faces. But I've realized they're a bit arbitrary. I mean, you can tell how angry I am by something by just watching one of these videos. So I'm deciding to change my rating system. And instead of doing Hawk faces, I'm going to do Kenny Loggins. Now, the logging scales measures how dangerous something is. So, for example, House of Numbers, the AIDS Nihilist documentary, would get 5 loggings. And this book, well, this is a difficult one. It's probably going to get a very low rating, probably 1 login out of 5, because there is a little bit of danger there, I think. I think if you start to believe in this crap, it's not healthy for you. You can tell how angry I am by something by just watching one of these videos, so I'm deciding to change my rating system, and instead of doing Hawk faces, I'm going to do Kenny Loggins. Now, the logging scales measures how dangerous something is. Because there is a little bit of danger there, I think. I think if you start to believe in this crap, it's not healthy for you. So stay away from this book. Which is huge, by the way. It cost £40, which is a lot of money. And on my first glances, I just thought it looks like an adult picture book because it's mostly pictures. It's very well made, but yeah, just stay away from this book because if you believe in this, it's probably not good for your mental health.
Dr. Wood's research, which has been ongoing since, well, probably about 2004. What she's compiled, as as she said, is irrefutable. So essentially, the only way to muddy the waters is just to insert doubt at every possible opportunity. And there are some very sort of common techniques, which I think I put them all under the umbrella of perception management, whereby instead of using the word evidence, you never use the word evidence, you use the word theory. And this then, immediately mischaracterizes it so that a theory, of course, can be debated, much to a much greater extent than evidence. If you talk about building turning to dust, then that's not a theory; it's an observation. So, when you then try and say, oh, well, it's all this directed energy weapon theory. Well, no, it's actually not a theory. This is what is actually, what the evidence tells you. And it's that whole scene really which I've written about, because that's what I saw was going on from about 2007. I think it was also something that went on with the cold fusion research, where they tried to sort of say, well, these guys have no evidence. What they're doing is just messing about, and we're going to do a proper report on this and prove that it doesn't actually work. And if you can do that in a suitably sort of compelling manner, and look at, for example, if you can massage data and hide the subtle effects which Pons and Fleischmann discovered, then you can get away with it, which is what they did. And so we've seen a similar operation going on for the last, let's see, at least, well, for the last 5.5 years, really, almost now, and particularly since 2008, this seems to have accelerated with these groups like Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, which are essentially, we've now got some evidence that those groups were purely set up to stop people discovering what Dr. Judy Wood has put together, and stop them from realizing that it was actually correct, to try and delay that realization for as long as possible.
What we've essentially tried to show, particularly in the last section, that what happened on 9/11 is very much similar to what John Hutchison did in experiments. But basically, what we're looking at is nuclear effects. We believe that the effects of these weird fires, it's some type of odd nuclear effect, and it's related to something called cold fusion, which should more correctly be termed low energy nuclear reactions. Now, some of you in this room may be familiar with Stephen E. Jones, and he produced this paper a few years ago in 2005, talking about the use of thermite at the World Trade Center. Stephen E. Jones actually worked on cold fusion, and he helped to discredit cold fusion, which is also a nuclear phenomenon. It's an energy phenomenon. And where this is all leading us to is that this is an energy phenomenon which underlies what happened to the World Trade Center. And it's actually energy which we could use instead of all the energy sources that we use at the moment, fossil fuels, nuclear power, and all this sort of thing. Now, some people say, well, Andrew, you're all having this argument about whether it's mini nukes, thermite. That doesn't matter. The only thing we need to do is we need to, agree that the official story of 9/11 is wrong. Everything else outside of that doesn't matter. That's what we've got to convince people of. And I say to them, no, that's not correct, because what we're talking about is free energy that we could use instead of all the destructive sources of energy that we have at the moment. So this is why it's so important. And the other main factor that you've seen tonight is to do with the weather. Now, Dr. Wood would state this a different way to how I state it, but to me, it looks like that Hurricane Enen, was steered or manipulated in some way. And you can see from the data that it went in a straight line for 4 days. So you're either faced with, is that a coincidence or isn't it a coincidence? And at some point, you're going to have to choose which one it is. And I certainly can't say that was a coincidence. So there's something very odd going on with that. So there, just by thinking about that for maybe a few days or a few hours, you've blown apart the whole climate change scam. It's all a scam. And you saw for example, the levitation effects. This is something that John Hutchison has reproduced as well. So that leads you to the concept of anti-gravity. Somebody able to control the force of gravity. What does that mean? We can have vehicles that we don't need roads. We don't need conventional aerospace technology. All that, somebody in the world, somewhere, has got access to different technology. Okay? So this is huge. It's probably this. There isn't an issue on the planet that this doesn't affect. It's the biggest thing on the planet, and it's needed the biggest cover-up. Very important point I want to make. This is not a theory. Not a theory. It is not a theory. This is what actually happened. What you've seen tonight is what actually happened. It's not a theory. Okay? You go onto the internet. Judy Wood's theory. Judy Wood's hypothesis. It's not a theory. It's a catalogue of evidence which shows you what happened. And by looking at what happened, you can work out what caused it. That's what Dr. Wood said at the beginning. So I just want to remind you all of that. It's very, very important that you realize that. You know, we've got a chance to access this technology and change the world.
Because so
since two.
And by looking at what
by directing once upon a time, there were two towers, and then they went away. We need to figure out why they went away. That little yellow box shows the block on the right in this area. That's all that's left of that huge building. And standing at the base and looking up at what was there, that's a lot of building that went missing. And what this is the dawn of a new age. Somebody has the ability to direct energy in such a way as to disrupt the molecular basis of matter. That's pretty incredible. And what I mean by directed energy, by directing it, you direct it to where it goes and what it does. It's like giving it instructions. It's not kinetic energy. It's not like a bomb, a missile, a jackhammer, a wrecking ball, or it's not a heat-based thing that cooks the building. The building wasn't cooked to death, nor was it beaten to death. This technology exists, and we know that it exists. The whole world saw it. They saw what happened. They were just told it was something else. But what this technology can do, it can be used to provide free energy for the whole planet. It was used for evil purposes, but can also be used for good. Look at how people argue about opinions about thermite or nukes or this or that, and it just, you get this big huge muddle up and everyone's around in circles, arguing with people. It's really destroyed people's ability to reason. I mean, as you've seen in this book, it's right in front of us.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
But why don't people see it? Because it was such a strong psychological operation. It destroyed people's ability to know what's real and what's not.
they want to know what the truth is, and they run to this truth movement business. But as I point out, do you think those who pulled off 9/11 just forgot to plan a cover-up?
Yeah, no.
And so what would it look like?
All right, guys. That was it, actually. That was it. You know, that's what's happened. Sometimes. All right, all right. Let's go. Let's try this. Okay. All right, maybe everything is working. The mic is working. All right, it's working. Yo. I'm sorry I wasn't here, actually. You know, I was watching the video, but, you know, I got soaked in it, actually. I got soaked in it. And I was watching, I didn't pay attention to the comments. Bear Britain audits. Thank you for showing up. Thank you. Good to see you, brother. Brandon, thank you for the comment, for the feedback, Brandon. GDUP Quinn, thank you for the comment, bro. And thank you for the likes, anyone. Thank you for being here. Anyway, it was a long ass documentary, you know. And it's yeah, it's a theory that's, yeah, I have to say, I agree with Dr. Judy. You know, this theory that turns the metal to dust. Yeah, I have seen it. I have seen it before. Because I know Dr. Hutchison, and by the way, I live in Hutchison Street, and I know Dr. Hutchison. Rest in peace, Dr. Hutchison. I know his experiments. I followed him for years. It was crazy, really crazy science. Levitation, anti-gravitational systems, like Tesla technology, like Tesla power, like generating like waves from the atmosphere. It's crazy. Yeah, I remember all that. You know, in the earlier 2000, I got in, I got to get in this hole, rabbit hole. Of the, forbidden science. It's forbidden science, forbidden chemistry. There is forbidden chemistry, forbidden science, forbidden physics. Yeah, you cannot play with those. Otherwise, the government is going to get you. And if you want to have information, they control all the information. They control it. So if you want to search the information, their computer, they would find you real quick. As soon as you Google things, they will find you. They will put you in some list of, person of interest. You have your phone like recording you like 24 hours. What else you want? Your research on YouTube, your lives on YouTube, the way you talk, the way you behave yourself, the way everything is add up. Everything is against you. As soon as you talk, everything can be used against you in court of law. How about that? Okay, guys, we'll see you soon. It's really interesting. This documentary is very, very interesting. I like it. Actually, I like it. I have another one. Another one is coming, for sure. Let me give you like a glimpse on what's coming. Okay, I have to go here. All right. Bear with me for a second. It's coming. Okay, I think it's playing. No, wait. We have to do it like this. All right, let's go. GD up, Quinn. What's up, man?
That's the third. Down and wet.
Shit, sorry, guys. I spoke at the same time. Sorry. Hey, what's up? Salute, fratello. What up, brother? How are you doing? GD up. Good. What up? You used to work there. Really? You were there when this happened? I mean, you were in New York?
It's the third. Down it went.
If you could plan, I mean,
boom. And in this chopper clip released,
there were numerous secondary explosions taking. If you could plan, I mean, the absolute worst case scenario, high-rise mission, I mean, you had it on 9/11. There were numerous secondary explosions taking place in that building. There were continuous explosions.
most people have never seen this angle of the first collapse at the World Trade Center on 9/11 simply because there isn't much to see. The action is hidden behind WTC-7 and the other tower. But what's important in this clip isn't what we can see, it's what we can hear. We can clearly...
Bro, is that the building WT7 that you were working? But I used to work. Let me read that. I work in building 7. Is that the building 7 that you see? Yeah, there is no way. There is no way. There is no way. You know that two planes did this, you know? The dust turned two building, like big ass building like this to dust, and the dust is raising up. It's not going down. It's no way, you know? The explosion that we hear is just from the pressure, from something, I don't know.
hear an explosion. And that's where this rabbit trail begins, ladies and gentlemen. Most of the videos of the first building collapse are edited so that you cannot hear the explosion. Here's an example. In that FOIA NIST clip, they jumped right into the collapse so that you wouldn't notice the boom. And in this chopper clip released to the public, they skipped right over the initiation sequence and jumped into the scene after it's pretty much done. And so that brings us back to this first clip. It's our opinion that they brought the chopper right over the towers to help mask the sound of the explosion and to blow as much smoke right into the angle.
Bro, you know, I studied like 5 years, you know, structure metal structures. And you know the amount of steel that those buildings have. It's unbelievable. Just the steel, you know, the steel beams and the steel that, and all that disappears, you know. You cannot find it on the ground. Disappears, turned to dust. It's unbelievable, you know. This theory that Dr. Judy Wood, she comes up with, you know, and actually we should do something, you know, about it. We should bring like an e-book or something, like a visual book of her, and put it out there. You know, she will agree to do that. Yes, bro. I you know, I was Didi up. I was watching like a live. I was watching live, and you know, and I was in Morocco at the time. It was maybe 1 o'clock. You know, it's lunchtime. It was lunchtime for us, or maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We were late for lunch, and we were watching this horrible thing happening live. You know, me too. I was thinking, what the you know what I mean? Look at the chopper. Look at the chopper.
And so that brings us back to this first clip. It's our opinion that they brought the chopper right over the towers to help mask the sound of the explosion and to blow as much smoke right into the angles being used by cable television. Oh yes, there are so many things left unexplained when it comes to 9/11.
See that blowout?
Imagine the explosive force necessary to blow a person straight out of a window. And it's just that window without any of the other windows or floors being affected. 9/11 deserves a second look. Not only for those that went through it, but for the millions of lives that have been affected ever since. Because if an explosion brought those towers down, then the whole thing's a mass deception. Remember, the people that told you about WMDs in Iraq were the ones who told you who did what on 9/11.
This is the most terrific capture. You know, this is the most terrific capture that I have seen. You know, and there is another one from the chopper. You know, the chopper was up there, and he took that picture. You know, that picture. Dr. Judy Wood, she used it for her book, Where the Tower Disappears. Where the Tower Disappears. You know, in her book, it's unbelievable book. You know, I need to read it actually.
To investigate 9/11, and 9/11 was perpetrated by people within our own government.
Hell yeah.
If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Yes, brother, I have it. It's on BitChute. I will post it, brother. For this one, for the last one, we're written for the last one, or for the long ass one. Where it goes? Okay, I will send this, bro. Holy shit! I don't know where did it go. I have to look in the history. Okay, let me look in the historic. Hey guys, you're welcome if you wanted to chat with me a little bit. You know, been here for maybe 3 hours. Still have few time, you know. Where did no, it's not this one. Bro, I cannot find it, man. What? They are playing with me, man. They are playing with me. Anyway, Bear Britain, I will post it. Last one. I will post it on my YouTube. You're gonna listen. I'm gonna freaking post it right now. Yeah, how about that? It's gonna take what? 2 minutes? 3, 4? You will find it on my videos. Okay, select file. Okay, you need 911 new footage. Public, publish. Estimated time 9 minutes. Okay, not bad. Hey, I wonder why there is no tears in my eyes. How about that? We try to find this song. Here.
I had a one-way conversation with me, myself, and I about the way we've been living. Can't imagine why. To get to where we're going, it's a clouded compromise. You're mistaken if you think I'm taking my eyes off the prize.
I don't.
Maybe I've been distracted, quite possibly alright. This big old bright and shining world has kept me up at night. We all know that price tag shouldn't come as no surprise. You're mistaken if you think I'm taking my eyes off the prize. Some days I live with no regrets. Some days I just as soon forget. Some days a diamond, some a stone. Some things I just as soon leave alone. So where does all this leave me? I can't really say I know. I got more questions than answers, quite a ways to go. Can't let that deter me, this I realize. You're mistaken if you think I'm taking my eyes off the prize. Some days I live with no regrets. Some days I just as soon forget. Some days a diamond, some a stone. Some things I just as soon leave alone. I had a one-way conversation with me, myself, and I about the way we've been living. Can't imagine why. To get to where we're going, it's a clouded compromise. You're mistaken if you think I'm taking my eyes off the prize. My eyes off the prize. My eyes off the prize.
مش عندنا دخينا.
Why do they always have to take Eli's there and all those stuff? It's because they hate him.
They hate me, right? Here you go, man. Run the shit up. I love you too, man. What's your name, bro? Animal. Animal Eli. They say, man. Okay. I love you, man. All day. Stay on, man. I put the tattoo on my shirt. I put the tattoo
on my shirt.
Say what?
Eli!
I'm
trying to be okay. Yeah, that's the people's God. I want an agent P, the mother people's God. I don't bother nobody. Yeah, that's the people's God. Oh, you don't bother me, the mother people's God. I'm trying to be okay. Yeah, that's the people's God. I want an agent P, the mother people's God. I don't bother nobody now. Yeah, that's the people's God. So you don't bother me, the mother people's God. Yo, I don't respect no pigs if I don't know them. A lot of them niggas just wanna kill me. Now I've been breaking my back due to the family. I'm only respecting the ones who feel me. Yo, I go all out for my people. Hold up, family first, and that's a step towards the contribution. And if I get pulled over by a dirty cop again, I'll be forced to remind them of the Constitution. I'm trying to be okay. Yeah, that's the people's guy. I want an Agent P, the mother people's guy. I don't bother nobody. Yeah, that's the people's guy. So you don't bother me, the mother people's guy. I'm trying to be okay. Yeah, that's the people's guy. I want an Agent P, the mother people's guy. I don't bother nobody now. Yeah, that's the people's guy. So you don't bother me, the mother people's guy. I have this word penetrated inside of my head. Successful. Getting pulled over to get extorted every other day is stressful. Yo, I've been to jail 50 times, and 50 times I didn't do shit. Out of those 50 times, they gave me 50 deals of bullshit. And after all this happened, yeah, you see me, I'm fine. I had to start from zero more than 50 times. Trying to be okay. Yeah, that's the people's guy. I want an Agent P, the mother people's guy. I don't bother nobody. Yeah, that's the people's guy. So you don't bother me, the mother people's guy. I'm trying to be okay. Yeah, that's the people's guy. I want an Agent P, the mother
they want to know the They don't need to know you. If they don't know, they don't need to know you.
Why do they always have to?
تسلكني غير الهربة وعلينا كانت باكا ونحمل همي الغربة ما القريب بلادي شابة مرنا وسط العقاقير وما في العقارات الواسع والعصافير واللقف في القصارات طولنا الزوج والساخ بينا كاع
I don't know where Team Podcast come from, but you know I'm Team Podcast.
فرجناكم ياما وسط اللارينا ولينا موروس هوينا وينا كنتو فينا ياما واحنا ماليها ما كاينش المرور ليها بعدو شيتو وين اولادكم بلادنا ولات هي بلادكم مالو اجيو قدامكم صافي سلام سياسكم سلام سياسكم سلام سياسكم قلم ديالنا يمحي التاريخ ديالكم وكينا تفكر يدرني راسية يزيد همومي ويزيد هواسية ما عندي صغر لي قناط راسية وشحال عذبتيني في الباسية كينا تفكر يدرني راسية يزيد همومي ويزيد هواسية ما عندي صغر لي قناط راسية شحال عذبتيني في الباسية
شبعتني لي بروبليم نبغى زهري يتسقم والله ماني فاهم الناس تتقدم وانا نتهدم
كبرنا وسط العقاقير وما في العقارات الواسع والعصافير واللقف في القصارات طولنا الزوج والساخ بينا كاع القاعات مروا كيف الدم في المغرب يطرونجي باغي يشوفونا طايحين ومنوضي سنا واخا ما بقينا في اليوطي راه مية مر ماشي ليطرونجي قتلو مية مني يجيب لي طروجي باغي يشوفونا طايحين ومنوضي
Holy fuck.
That feels great.
Holy boom. Holy boom. Bombakla.
You, sir, at Pump 16 in Burbank. Yeah, the gentleman's singing. Really nice singing voice. Yeah, good morning, sir, at Pump 16.
Hey!
Hey, how you doing?
Okay, how are you?
You got a good voice.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, do you do that professionally?
No, just karaoke.
Just karaoke?
Yeah.
Guess what, buddy? You came to the right gas pump.
All right.
I'll tell you what. We'll pay for your gasoline.
Okay.
How about a little karaoke from you?
Okay, what you want?
What do you got?
Oh, I'm an 80s kid, so I like
Well, you're an
Janet,
80s
like
guy.
Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi?
Yeah.
Living on a Prayer?
You want Living on a Prayer?
Do you need the words?
No, I know them, baby.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Here's Will with Living on a Prayer.
Tommy used to work on the docks. Union's been on strike. He down on his luck, he's too.
You're good.
So too.
Look out, Bon Jovi.
Woo! Gina works the diner all day. Working for her man. She brings home her pay for love.
Get this guy on The Voice.
For love. She says we gotta hold on to what we got. Doesn't make a difference if we make it or not. We got each other, and that's a lot for love. We'll give it a shot. Oh, we're halfway there. Oh, take my hand, and we'll make it, I swear. Oh, living on a prayer. What was that?
Look how embarrassed your girlfriend is. That your wife?
That's
Who's in the
my
car?
Yeah, want to get me to get her? Now I'll leave her in there.
Yeah, does she do a duet? Get her out here.
You want to do a duet?
Yeah, we want a duet.
They want to do that?
Come on.
You don't want to do it.
She won't do it?
She won't do it.
You are living on a free tank of gas.
Living on a tank of gas. Oh, that's a living for the free gas. Living for the
This guy is a fucking element. You know, get him a something. Get these guys something.
I'm right here, man.
What the hell? Oh, up there.
Right there. Look at the camera.
Are you for real? It's live?
Yeah, Pumpcast News.
Oh my gosh.
We do news of gas all over the country. Now, is this woman a singer too?
Are you a singer?
No.
Are you sure?
No,
Everybody does karaoke. She does a good Alanis Morissette.
What song by Alanis Morissette?
None. I'll sing Sweet Dreams by the Eurythmics.
Here, it's coming up. Here, it's about to start.
Okay. I'm ready. Sweet dreams are made of this. Who am I to disagree? I traveled the world and the 7 seas. Everybody's looking for something. Some of them want to use you.
Give her a little backup.
Some of them want to get used by you. Some of them want to abuse you. Some of them want to be abused. Dance break.
I'm gonna get both of you on The Voice.
Sweet dreams are made of this.
Sing, baby.
Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the 7 seas.
Get it, girl.
Everybody's looking for something. Dance break, dance break, dance break.
He's a good husband and good singer.
He's stealing your thunder.
Moving on. Go head up. Moving on. Stick go head up. Moving on. Go head up. Moving on. Stick go head up.
Man, this video, it will never get old. It will never get old. You know, every time I see that energy, you know, coming from a couple like that, that's something, you know. That's a good neighbors. That's a good human being. That's a good couple. That's a good energy. That's the way we should be, you know. Not treating each other like a, and you accept, you know, you accept for me like kindness. You don't treat me like a shit except for me kindness, you know. There is give and receive. It's let's give and receive. Anyway, I'm gonna open another live in maybe 2 hours or maybe 4 hours. I don't know. At night. This night, tonight, we're gonna make a live stream about right to travel. Okay, I got like very nice video, guys, for you. And I swear to God, it's worth watching. All right. And I'm gonna give you the whole information, you know, the whole original shit. If you don't want to watch it with me, I'm not gonna interrupt a lot. I'm gonna let it play like I did with this video, 3 hours. So that's what I'm gonna do. So be there.
Make a shift and you fall deep into a spell. Let your body talk to the voice when you say, baby, I'm the one you'll find deep in the groove that drives your body and your senses. I'm the heat inside when rhythm and love collide. Let me introduce myself.
Son como un chupete, cheque, tra, que quema el flow, my life, my style, se te pegue. Aquí mi ruso pone el prete, aquí la cucu pone el tete. Siéntate, relaja, escucha esto que ponemos un poco de música con ganas, rumba y sentimiento, cambio sí. Body, jazz, body, move your body, move your body.